Hello, welcome to my weekly update. I am getting started with this update a little bit late today. I just finished attending the live AMA on Reddit with Dr. Shoemaker, and it was honestly pretty cool. So there's been a lot of advancements in the research surrounding SEERS, and I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing that roll out within the medical system. And I think one of the things that I personally found to be one of the most exciting things is that they are currently working with the federal government right now to establish an ICD code for SEERS. And what that means is that people like myself who are indeed suffering with this condition would be able to apply for disability or, get their insurance companies to pay for some of these diagnostics and medical treatments and everything else. So it's really, I get very excited when I kind of see the direction things are starting to go in, and I can only keep my fingers crossed that they will continue to kind of go in that same trajectory and that we'll start seeing some real change. I know for me personally, as a toxic mold exposure survivor, is the just the vast devastation that becoming exposed to toxic mold has on your life, your finances, your health, even things like your social, your social life in general. And, your family, your friends don't really understand. No one understands. The medical system doesn't get it. I know for me personally, I spent years going in and out of the emergency room. I was dying, essentially. But my labs, they all came back normal, which I found out to be very incorrect once I left the conventional medical system, but that's a whole nother story. But what's really difficult about toxic mold exposure and then SEERS, which can develop from that, is the loss of life, property, health, like I said, your social life, everything in your life suffers. And you're sick and you look sick, and everything about you says I'm sick, but the doctors, they simply can't pin it down. They don't understand. And that's not just within the conventional system, it's also in the alternative system as well, because I have yet to see a mold specialist or a doctor who is well versed in the condition SEERS. So which is funny, because if you look through my phone, at this point, I have more doctors' phone numbers in my phone than I do friends and family. It's literally, I can scroll through just pages and pages and pages of doctors that I have had contact with in one way or another, revolving around my health in some capacity. So it's very frustrating. You go to a lot of conventional medicine practitioners. I don't even tell them I think I have toxic mold exposure, or point at my labs and be like, see, it says I have it here. I don't even bother with that anymore, because it's just not on their radar. And when it's not on their radar, then it doesn't exist. And you end up getting gaslit. And it's just this really, really vicious cycle. It's so hard to deal with when you're dealing with something as serious as toxic mold exposure, and how devastating that is on everything. But anyway, once these ICD codes get established, that is bringing us one step closer to having the recognition and the legitimacy around this condition. And I really think that it is a step in the right direction. So everybody over at Moldco, thank you very much for the AMA, and also for working with the federal government to get these codes in effect, because they are sorely needed. Next, I touched on this a little bit during my last update, but since I just got through the AMA with Dr. Shoemaker, I thought I would discuss it just a little bit more. So I did some more reading on the Mold Act that was put before Senate January of this year, and it is currently going through the initial legislative process and it's on its way to hopefully become improved. And what is just so, I'm trying to find the word to describe how I feel about this. Exciting, and also it almost brings a tear to my eye, because it's like it's validation. In this bill, they literally say in black and white, plain English, that toxic mold has been shown to cause XYZ damage, and it just lists out the health issues. It says that it causes, financial burden and coming out of pocket for relocation, just all of the struggles that toxic mold survivors deal with that are just basically ignored are now in this bill. They even go a step further as to say that TRICARE, which is the insurance for our armed forces, does not cover any of these expenses. So not only are they legitimizing toxic mold exposure as a real danger and a hazard, they're also, putting together standards for how homes that are being rented to our armed forces and military personnel, they need standards. They can't go living in houses with disrepair, with water damage or high humidity, mold problems that weren't remediated. It's putting another layer on top of a very serious situation that has yet to be really, addressed by the government. I know that for me, when I was exposed to toxic mold in my old home, I called the city because I said to myself, there is absolutely no way that this isn't illegal. It has destroyed my life. It has made me disabled. It has racked up medical bills in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. It has just wiped me out financially. And, it almost cost me my life. There's no way that this is legal because I actually had said something to the property manager that I go to go between my old landlord and I, and she refused to remediate. So I told her there was mold. I told her I was sick. She refused to remediate, citing that it was too expensive. So, I contacted the city, and they told me that mold exposure is a purely civil thing and that they would not get involved. So it took me researching different code violations and coming up with a list of other, code violations that were going on in that townhouse I was renting. Then I called them back, gave them all the code violations. They finally allowed me to submit a complaint, and I told them about the mold exposure, how it had destroyed my life, and they told me that they would go ahead and pursue them or pursue the code violations, and they would tack on the mold exposure problems, but I had to promise that I wasn't going to use that information in a civil court, which I did because I didn't have the money to pursue a lawsuit. I wasn't well enough. I literally had to flee that building, to save my own life. And that's kind of the thing. There is no accountability in the housing market right now for landlords to keep their buildings up to code, especially when it comes to mold exposure. You'll see these buildings, it's such a common problem. So you'll see these buildings that have had water damage. They definitely have mold in them, but the landlords, instead of actually fixing the problem, will just do these really poor paint jobs or, cut the water off and think that's enough. It's sad. So anyway, I'm very excited about the Mold Act, and I really feel that it is setting a precedent for mold exposure to be taken more seriously. So I want to talk a little bit just about my health update this week. So I tweaked my diet a bit. I haven't really been feeling right, which isn't anything new, but I was kind of researching the things in my diet, and I found a lot of the foods I was eating to be high histamine. So I thought, why don't I try lowering that a little bit and see if I start feeling any better. So I'm taking out a lot of the high histamine foods, so like avocado, spinach, tofu, soy sauce, just the really kind of heavy histamine foods. And I've replaced them with low histamine options instead. And I also went ahead and, since I'm removing tofu, which was a protein source for me, I'm adding in a couple eggs. So I'm not necessarily 100% plant-based anymore, but I've been craving eggs like crazy. So I've added those into my diet. And I think that's it for this week. I don't really have any other updates. So I think that's it. But anyway, thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.